She stood there in the dim glow of the VFW hall, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee and polished brass, her shoulders hunched under the weight of stares that felt like daggers. The officers, young, starched uniforms, crisp as fresh orders, chuckled low, their voices slicing through the murmurs like shrapnel. "Look at that relic," one sneered, nodding at her faded denim jacket, patched and frayed at the elbows, hanging loose on her slight frame. "Think she's one of us? Probably bought it at a flea market." Her cheeks burned, not from the heat of the room, but from the raw sting of being stripped bare, invisible scars exposed for sport. But what if that laughter hid a truth they couldn't bear to face? It was 1968, and Ellie Harper was 19, her boots sinking into the red mud of a Vietnamese jungle that swallowed light and hope whole. The helicopter's rotors thumped like a frantic heartbeat overhead as she clutched her M16, sweat stinging her eyes, the metallic tang of fear mixing with the earthy rot of the underbrush. She'd enlisted to escape a nothing-town life, trading diner shifts for this green hell. But nothing prepared her for the ambush that night. The crack of gunfire erupting like thunder, shadows of her squad vanishing into screams and smoke. Bullets whizzed past, hot and hungry, and when Private Ramirez went down, his chest blooming red, Ellie didn't think. She just moved. Dragging him through the vines that clawed at her skin like desperate fingers, she radioed for evac, her voice steady even as her world tilted. That patch on her jacket? It wasn't some thrift store gimmick. It was sewn there by Ramirez himself, in the flickering lantern light of base camp. A crude eagle with eagle's shadow stitched below, for the unit that became her family. But heroism in war doesn't come with fanfare. It leaves you hollow, whispering questions in the dark. What price had she paid that no one back home would ever see? Years blurred after that. Discharge papers crumpled in her glove box, a string of dead-end jobs where veteran meant discount coffee, but no real welcome. Ellie married quiet, to a man who understood the silences. But cancer took him too soon, leaving her with a daughter who asked why Mommy flinched at fireworks. The jacket stayed folded in a cedar chest, a ghost she couldn't bury, until Sarah's graduation loomed, and Ellie dusted it off, pinning that patch like a talisman against the ache of time. "Wear it for me, Mom," Sarah had said, eyes bright with the pride Ellie could never claim aloud. So there she was, at the hall for the ceremony, jacket slung over her chair like an afterthought, until those officers spotted it during the mingle. Eagle faded to gray, threads unraveling like forgotten promises. Their jabs landed soft at first, then sharper, drawing a circle of smirks. "Hey, Grandma, Halloween's next month," another quipped, and the room's hum dipped, eyes flicking away in polite discomfort. Ellie's fingers tightened on her styrofoam cup, the plastic creaking under her grip, as memories flooded back unbidden. The weight of Ramirez's body, the chop of blades pulling them to safety. She wanted to shout, to rip open her chest and show them the shrapnel scars etched invisible on her soul. But words failed, as they always did in the face of dismissal. How much more could she swallow before she shattered? Then the door swung open with a hush of cool evening air, carrying the broad-shouldered figure of General Harlan Brooks, silver hair catching the light like frost on steel. He'd come unannounced, a last-minute speaker for the grads, his presence sucking the oxygen from the room, medals glinting on his chest like distant stars. Ellie didn't notice him at first, lost in the haze of humiliation. But he moved through the crowd like a ship cutting fog, pausing at her table where the laughter still echoed faintly. His eyes, sharp, weathered blue, dropped to the jacket draped there, snagging on that eagle patch like a hook in flesh. The general froze, color draining from his face as if he'd seen a specter rise from the grave. "Eagle's shadow," he murmured, voice cracking like dry leaves, and the officers fell silent, their smirks curdling into confusion. He reached out, not with mockery, but reverence, tracing the frayed edges with a trembling finger, the room holding its breath as tears welled in those battle-hardened eyes. In that suspended moment, Ellie saw it too, the past crashing in, vivid as yesterday's rain. But what secret did that patch unlock in a man who'd commanded thousands? Flashback gripped him then, pulling General Brooks back to '68, to the same jungle vein where he'd been a captain, green as the vines, leading a recon that turned nightmare. He'd heard the radio crackle that night, Ellie's voice cutting through static, calm as a lullaby amid chaos. "This is Harper. We've got wounded. Cords incoming. Hold the line." He hadn't known her then, just a name on a roster. But her call saved his platoon from walking into the kill zone, diverted them just in time. Later, after the dust settled, he'd pinned that patch on her jacket himself in the med-tent's humid stink, whispering, "You pulled us from the fire, kid. Wear this proud." Life scattered them after, promotions for him, shadows for her, but he'd carried that debt like a stone in his boot, wondering if she'd survived the home front wars no one fights aloud. Now, here she was, the woman whose sacrifice had rippled through decades, mocked by boys who'd never tasted mud. Tears spilled free as he straightened, snapping a salute so crisp it echoed off the walls. Hand to brow, eyes locked on hers in silent apology and awe. The officers shifted, faces paling as whispers rippled. Who was she? What had they missed? Ellie's throat tightened, the cup slipping from her numb fingers. But in his gaze, she saw not pity, but recognition. The kind that mends fractures you didn't know were bleeding. He didn't let the moment break. Instead, General Brooks pulled a chair close, the wood scraping like a confession. And in a voice gravel rough from years of orders and regrets, he asked her name. "Ellie Harper," she said, barely above a breath, and it was like striking flint, sparks of shared memory igniting. They talked then, words tumbling soft and halting at first, the hall fading to a distant hum as he shared how her radio call had saved his life, how he'd named his first son after the unit's call sign. Ellie spoke of Ramirez, of the letters she'd burned unread, of nights when the jungle sounds bled into city traffic, keeping sleep at bay. The officers hovered awkward at the edges, one murmuring apologies that tasted like ash. But it was the general's hand on her shoulder, warm, steady, that anchored her, a bridge across the chasm of years. Sarah watched from across the room, eyes wide, piecing together the hero her mother had hidden, and for the first time, Ellie felt the weight lift, not all at once, but enough to breathe. As the conversation wove deeper, revealing sacrifices etched in silence, you couldn't help but wonder, how many unsung stories walk among us, waiting for the right light to reveal their fire? By night's end, the hall transformed, not with speeches or toasts, but with quiet shifts. Officers offering hands in genuine clasp, sharing their own fledgling tales, the air warming with the scent of fresh brewed respect. General Brooks stood with Ellie for the ceremony, her jacket now a banner across his arm, and when Sarah crossed the stage, diploma in hand, he saluted her too, tears drying into a smile that promised legacy unbroken. Ellie slipped the jacket back on as they parted, the patch brushing her heart like a whispered vow. Reminder that some battles scar deeper than skin, but connections forged in fire endure. Driving home under a sky stitched with stars, Sarah's hand in hers, Ellie glanced at the rear view, catching her own reflection. Not broken, but battle-worn beautiful. And in that rear-view truth, a final question lingers, soft as dawn. What hidden patches might we all carry, ready to salute the souls we've yet to see?